listening to Zap Night, a video game review podcast, with your hosts, Danny and Kaylee. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 29 for Zap Night.
29.
I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm your co-host, Kaylee.
Today we are talking about Final Fantasy IV.
4.
It is 4. So Final Fantasy IV is renumbered Final Fantasy II in North America when it came out for the Super Nintendo. So while my Super Nintendo cartridge up there says Final Fantasy II, it really means Final Fantasy IV. The story behind it, and I've said this before, is in North America we got Final Fantasy I on the Nintendo, and then we didn't see another Final Fantasy game in North America until Final Fantasy IV. And to avoid confusion, they've renamed it Final Fantasy II. So technically in North America we got Final Fantasy I, and then we got Final Fantasy IV as Final Fantasy II.
To avoid confusion,
crazy. Yeah, I know.
Add more confusion.
And people are still confused about it today. So
I can't believe you understand it, because every time you describe it, I'm like, I have
no idea. Well, I just think of it as North America got Final Fantasy 1, 4, 6. And they renamed them to 1, 2, 3. And it wasn't until they re-released all these games on the PlayStation version that they renamed them the correct way. It's crazy. I mean, imagine the confusion when Final Fantasy VII came out, because we got 1, 2, 3 as 1, 4, and 6, and then 7 came out and they renamed it 7, and everyone was like, "Where's the rest of the games?" So yeah. Fun stuff. So now this copy of Final Fantasy IV, the Super Nintendo copy that I have, interesting story, and I said it on the stream a few times. I picked this game up with Final Fantasy VI at a garage sale, and it was in one of these like little cassette drawers. And we walked up to the garage sale, and out of curiosity, I opened this cassette drawer, and inside was the 2 Super Nintendo games. And I just like had this panic moment of, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that these games are sitting in here. So as calmly as I possibly could, I'm just like, how much do you want for these? And they're like, $2 a piece. And I'm like, sold, take my money. I need to leave.
Sold.
I remember looking at Lori and being like, stay calm. As I'm like trying to keep myself calm.
Do you think they knew it was in there? Do you think who it belonged to?
I honestly have no idea. It seemed like it was an older guy who was selling the stuff. Maybe he was selling it for someone else, and they didn't necessarily know that those games were in there.
So they're over there looking, where's my copies?
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be. And here they are in my collection. So
Thanks.
Whoever it was, thank you. And I'm sorry that you lost your copy, but I'm getting good use out of it. So all the better.
That's crazy.
It's one of those things. This is why we go garage sailing all the time, and why we go to thrift shops, is because you never know what you're going to find. You never know how much they're going to be worth.
You hear people finding gems like that, so I'm sure it's nice.
Just a few days ago, we went to a thrift shop and found a little action figure. It was a G.I. Joe that we turned around and we bought it for $1, and we turned around and sold it for what, $40?
Wow.
Yeah, $40. It's crazy.
39 profit.
I know. So anyway, we're talking about Final Fantasy IV today. Before we start talking about the game, I did want to mention we streamed all the Final Fantasy IV on our YouTube page. Well, we streamed it on Twitch, but you can see it on our YouTube page. Just do a search for Zap Night, and our YouTube channel should pop up. Subscribe to our YouTube page, please. We only have 20 subscribers right now. So I really would like to see a lot more people interacting over there, and we put tons of content. We have all of our previous podcasts up on our YouTube page, not like the video format that we started doing, but just the audio files are up there. We got all of our gameplay footage from a bunch of different games. We have a lot more games that we have planned for the future, so whatever you guys can do to go over there and subscribe, that'd be great. If you like what we're doing, just show some support and help us out. That'd be awesome. Yeah. So with that said, let's move on to our review here. So Final Fantasy IV was developed by Square on the Super Nintendo, and it was released in July of 1991 in Japan, and then in North America we got it in November of 91. So So, it was then later ported to the PlayStation 1, then to the Game Boy Advance, and then the DS. And
Then remastered, right?
yeah, so it was remastered for the DS. Oh no, it was also on the PSP. I forgot the PSP.
Ah, yes.
So it was PlayStation 1, Game Boy Advance, DS, PSP, and then the DS version was then pushed out to iOS and Android too. Now the DS version has the like chibi sprites. It was completely overhauled to be like modernized or 3D, I guess. It's not terrible. It's not quite as bad as Final Fantasy 3, but it still is funny.
I think you and me are in agreement as far as like chibi characters with like a serious
and this game is so serious, and we'll talk about it later. But to have these like
itty bitty cute things,
it just doesn't fit right. It doesn't look the same as what other stuff, what a Final Fantasy game should be. And I kind of feel that way about 15 too, when they released it for the iOS with these like chibi characters. It loses its maturity, So I don't know.
We don't have to get too far into it, but I felt like with how charming like the group of friends were, the chibi idea was kind of cute.
Yeah.
But for this game, I don't know.
So, you want to get into the story?
Sure. So, you start out with your main character, Cecil, who's the leader of the Red Wings.
Now, I've heard it's Cecil and Cecil.
Cecil. Well, we have an Uncle Cecil. Well, we used
to call him Cecil.
He's now
a little bit
Cecil.
Easier.
My Uncle Cecil was the leader of the Red Wings. So you start off with your main character, Cecil. And him and the Red Wings attack and steals the water crystal from the city of Mysidia on request of King Baron. So Cecil is of Baron.
Mm-hmm.
After returning and questioning his king's motives for killing innocent bystanders, Cecil is removed from his position as captain and is given the new task of destroying the phantom beasts of the Upper Valley and delivering the bomb ring of the Village of Mist.
So now he's got this like he knows that what he's doing is wrong, and I think that's where this comes in, where he starts questioning, why he's stealing these crystals, and in that questioning, the king sees it as defiance.
Well, not only that, but they are killing innocent people, and it's really questioning his king and
right,
personally,
yeah,
and his king doesn't. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be questioning this. Do as I say.
Right, but now, still though, Cecil didn't actually
he didn't want to do this.
Well, he didn't directly question the king's, sanity. He simply just said, "I don't understand why we're doing this." He really wasn't trying to make it a big deal, but the king blew it way out of proportion and stripped him of his title and had him deliver this package to the town.
So they get to the Village of Mist with this ring that the king has sent them with. And by the way, he's going with his friend Kane. His friend Kane, I don't know how it was introduced in your game, but I believe in my game he is a dragoon. But they also called him like Dragon Masters. I saw him one. I don't know.
No, I haven't seen that. I just saw him as dragoon in my version.
So him and his friend Kane, they make their way to this Village of Mist, and they fight this mist dragon in the caves, which isn't important.
Well, it is important actually.
It is important.
They kill the mist dragon, and at the time it didn't mean much, but then later they find out that those summon monsters.
If you kill the summon, you kill the summoner.
Yeah,
essentially. Yep. So they make it into the Village of Mist, and this activates this bomb ring that the king sends them with, and it essentially bombs this entire village.
Burns the whole village down.
And they quickly encounter the one sole survivor, which is this little girl, which you find out is how did you pronounce
Rydia.
it? Rydia?
Yeah.
Rydia.
I mean, it looks like Rita,
I was pronouncing it like Rydia. I couldn't decide.
I think Rydia is the more commonly accepted way of saying it, but I have no idea. I have no clue.
So, realizing that the village was in fact the village full of summoners, of course Cecil and Kane are appalled that their king has sent them to essentially annihilate these innocent people. So they renounce their loyalty to their king, and realizing that Cecil and Kane are the cause of this little girl's mother's death because they killed the Mist Dragon, which was her summon.
And that was the mom, who they killed as the dragon.
She in turn retaliates and summons her own, which was Titan at the time, and it causes this great earthquake that ends up separating your party. So you are separated from Kane, and you wake up next to this little girl, and you have to make your way to help bring her. I think they brought her to an inn so that they could rest and recuperate, because obviously it was a lot of destruction.
Yeah.
So after seeking refuge in a nearby town and running into Rosa, who has fallen ill on her travels to go find you, because of course that she's heard about this earthquake that's happened,
and she was worried about Cecil.
Right.
And they're like, are they officially like together, or are they just friends?
I believe before you leave, they are saying like "I love you" and stuff. So I believe it's already established that they're in a relationship.
Together in some way.
So you and Rydia make your way to go find this cure in the next town over, and in the cave passage on the way there, you run into this mage Tella, which
lots of jokes. Yeah, lots of Tella jokes.
He's also on his way to, and I didn't know how to pronounce this one either. I'm so bad about this game. Demacian? Is that how it was?
I don't know.
Demacian Castle. He's on his way to find his daughter Anna, who's run off to marry this bard named Edward. So upon arrival, it's apparent that the Red Wings have already bombed this castle. And they go upstairs where they find a dying Anna and Edward, who is the bard that she's run off.
Yeah, and Diana is Tella's
dying Anna. Anna is, yes.
Oh, was it Anna?
Was it Diana in yours?
Oh no, I thought that's what you said.
Dying Anna.
I thought you said Diana, so I just thought that was her name.
No.
I mean, you can see how I would be confused.
I agree. So you find Anna, who's dying, and Tella confronts Edward because, he's...
Now, from Tella's point of view, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
From Tella's point of view, Anna is, eloping with this random...
Bard.
Well, essentially, a traveling musician. In Tella's point of view, she's just running away with this guy. It wasn't until he gets there and he finds out that
Edward's actually the prince,
right? And I mean, he makes his peace with Edward, but
so they actually fight it out a little bit. You actually go into a battle scene.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Was kind of funny. But yeah, it turns out that Edward is in fact the prince. And you learn that Golbez is now the new commander over the Red Wings, who led the assault on the castle. Now, originally it was Cecil, but he was stripped of his rank, and now Golbez is rising in his position. So with revenge in his mind, Tella leaves your party to go find Golbez, and the party has to continue to find this cure for Rosa, because that's more important at the moment. So... You go to the Antlion's den, and you retrieve the Light of the Desert, which is what you use to help heal her. I believe it was called the Desert Fever that she has.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So after defeating the normally tame Antlion, the party backtracks and heals Rosa of her illness, and they all make their way to Fabul, where the next crystal resides, because they know that that's probably next.
Yeah, at this point, Cecil is trying to forewarn the kingdoms that their castles are going to be under attack, and that their crystals are,
and that's really his
desired.
After renouncing his
rank.
After renouncing
his kingdom.
his kingdom, yeah. You know, that really is his next goal, is to warn everyone of all of this that's happening, because he doesn't agree with what his king is doing as far as taking the crystals and killing off all these innocent people. So, on their way, the party runs into Yang, who's the captain of the monks of Fabul, who is training on Mount Hobbs before he and his men end up being attacked by monsters. So, with his men dead, Cecil tells him that he will accompany him to Fabul because they have to tell him what's happening.
Yeah, and Yang, they explain the situation to Yang, and Yang's like, we gotta go back and tell the king. Right. So they run back to try and
warn them about the crystal.
Prepare.
So, they get to Fabul, and the party, they prepare for battle because they know they're coming. And your party ends up aiding in Fabul, defending their castle and all of this happening. So when the attack happens, you end up fighting a lot of these soldiers and stuff, and you end up getting pushed back into the castle. Eventually you get pushed back into the crystal room, where that is your ultimate...
Yeah, defend the crystal at all costs, sort of thing.
So, when they get pushed back into the crystal, Kane comes back in, which is surprising because you've been parted from Kane for a while, and it's very apparent that he's under Golbez's control.
Well, I don't know if it's apparent at that point necessarily.
Well, he's obviously with Golbez.
Yeah, that's really what it is that he clearly has chosen a side. It seems like that he's chosen a side.
So your party kind of gets knocked down, and Rosa and Rydia come and join your party in the room, and Golbez comes up behind them, and he ends up not only taking the crystal, but he ends up kidnapping Rosa in the process.
He attacks Cecil.
He does.
And Cecil keeps questioning, like, why didn't you just kill me, you know? Which I have to say, we'll talk about it later, but try and remember that, because there's an interesting fact about that later.
Okay.
I mean, I guess we can kind of talk about it. It's, as everyone knows, this is a spoiler type of situation. I mean, you don't listen to this podcast.
We're telling you the story.
Yeah, you don't listen to the podcast unless you know. But later on, you find out that Cecil and Golbez are brothers,
right.
And it's funny that Cecil is questioning why Golbez didn't kill him, and that's probably why, because deep down, Golbez knows that that's my brother.
I just assumed it was because he knew he was going to use him as a pawn to find the other crystals.
You know, I kind of thought that too, but now, experiencing the story here a little bit again, I wonder if that's why. I wonder if that's kind of what they were hinting at. Because they made it this huge deal,
I was just under the impression that they knew that Cecil would come. Well, because later on, they tell him, bring me this crystal in exchange for Rosa.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
so he was using this really as bait for him to continue to pursue him.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
So they leave with Rosa. They kidnap Rosa. So, needing an airship, the party decides to sneak back into Baron to steal one, because their specialty is airships. So, sailing by ship, they make their way towards Baron, but on the way, they're attacked by Leviathan, and their ship gets sucked down into the water.
Isn't that convenient?
Yeah. So you get, this happens, and the next thing you know, you're awake, alone, on this random shore. Your party's gone, you have no idea what's happened to them. So you make your way off the shores, and you go into the town of Mysidia, which this town is in the very beginning of the game. You've attacked this town already. So when you go in there, the villagers are very obviously annoyed with you and not very happy.
Yeah.
They still hold this grudge against him for the prior attack. So at the suggestion of the elder of Mysidia, Cecil makes his way to climb Mount Ordeals to renounce his Dark Knight path, if you will, and receive the holy powers of the Paladin. And I believe this is like a prophecy that they talked about happening?
Yeah, I think that Cecil was trying to prove that he's not this person that the town has made him up to be, that he knows what he's done has been wrong, so he's kind of half he's trying to prove himself to the village, of
Right.
his trust, and I think part of that is trying to repent a little bit of the
Right.
stuff that he's done.
Well, for sure, throughout this time, he has this inner conflict of taking up the dark sword and the dark armor and, the darkness behind
What's
it.
funny is that there's no real, like, backstory beyond that. Like, why? Was there some sort of challenge behind that?
The
or
only
just
thing
that
I understand...
he has darkness in his soul?
The only thing I'm assuming it be like having dark magic and stuff, something I think of, or being able to wield these dark weapons. But he only, I believe, the way I understand it is he only took up this at the request of his king to become a Dark Knight. He didn't do it really because he wanted to be a Dark Knight.
Oh, he also has been told that he's not able to defeat Golbez in
Right.
the darkness as a Dark Knight.
Dark Knight, yes.
That he has to change to a paladin to even be able to defeat
Sure.
him. So I'm sure that that's also part of the motivation.
So he has to go to Mount Ordeals to renounce his Dark Knight path and become a paladin. So he's joined by twin mages Palom and Porum. Porum? Spies. And Cecil makes his way up the mountain, where he runs into Tella again, who's been searching to either remember or find the spell meteor. Which, again, I've seen it spelled Mateo or something like that. It was something weird.
I think in my game it was
Meteo?
like Meteo, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just abbreviated to be able to fit.
I see. They
in
couldn't fit the
spell
R in there.
I don't know.
So the team battles their way to the cave, where Cecil is imbued with the powers of the paladin, and he's got to fight his former shadow as a Dark Knight. And this is really just a symbolic way of giving up his Dark Knighthood and becoming the paladin. And after he's done this and has become the paladin, Tella also happens to remember all these lost spells that he could never remember before. So he remembers Meteor. So they make their way down the mountain to Mysidia, and they may have to make their way back to Baron. And upon their return, the party meets up with Yang and Baron, who seems to have been kind of like Kane. It's not like he's really corrupted, but he doesn't recognize you as an ally.
Yeah, this is the first time that you're really seeing that there's something else going on.
And, you've been separated since the ship with Leviathan, so you assume everyone's essentially dead.
Right.
So, you end up fighting him, and he ends up kind of remembering what's going on. So you go in to confront the king, and as you confront the king, it's become apparent that the king is not the king. It's one of Golbez's, what were they, mages? Like 4 elemental mages?
Yeah, the 4 elements. Yep. The monsters.
He's been under disguise this whole time as this false king, basically.
What is he, a chancellor?
Yeah, it's always the chancellor.
It's always the chancellor.
So, after winning, the team meets up with Sid, who leads them to the hidden airship, the Enterprise, only to be trapped inside this room that's kind of been booby-trapped by the false king. And I think it's the walls start to move in.
Yeah, they start to crush them.
So, Palom and Porum, the 2 twin mages that have been accompanying you so far, they end up sacrificing themselves.
By turning to stone.
Yes, they hold up the wall and turn to stone.
Yeah, and they sit there and then they're stoned in like that, holding the walls. But what's funny about that is that they're not able to cure them because they turn to stone of their own free will. So apparently that is uncurable. Though what I find interesting is that you can walk up to them and offer to give them items.
Can you really?
You can. At least in my version you could.
Huh.
Not that I had anything that I could give them, but I thought that was interesting. That maybe somewhere in the game you can find some sort of golden needle that you can give to them.
Maybe they intended for you to go back or something.
Maybe,
scrapping it.
Maybe there is some sort of underdeveloped, side quest or something.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't even talk to him.
Yeah.
So you quickly make it to the Enterprise where Sid has hidden it, and the team makes it into the air. But before they can even leave above Baron, they're confronted by Kane again in his own airship. And so in exchange for Rosa, Cecil is told that he has to go bring them the crystal that resides in Toria. So as they go retrieve this crystal, Kane leads the party to the Tower of Zot. Do you remember the Tower of Zot?
Oh, yeah. That's where Rose is being captive.
And that's where they make that exchange for Rosa and the crystal.
And the crystal.
So with Tella in your party, he remembers Meteor. So he casts it right away. But at the risk, he ends up dying in the process. It's such a strong magic. And so this severely damages Golbez in the process. So it releases his hold over Kane. And so with Kane's help, you're able to rescue Rosa
Before
her, because I think something like is ready to fall on her.
No, I think. Oh yeah, something is ready to fall on her, but I think also that the tower is about to self-destruct or something. Yeah.
So they regroup in Baron, with Golbez in search of the other 4 dark crystals. To reach to the moon, the party heads to the underworld and passes through the crossfire between the dwarves and the Red Wings.
Yeah. So at this point, they already know that all of the upper world crystals have been taken. Collected. But in a stroke of convenience, there's also underworld crystals, the dark crystals that Golbez has to collect also. So now this is kind of the information that they get from Kane, who was under Golbez's control. So with that in mind, Kane's like, hey, we need to get to the underworld to be able to get ahead of Golbez to collect these crystals, and that's where they run into the conflict with the dwarves.
So the party, after their ship is shot down, they go in and they speak to the Dwarven King and realize that Golbez already has hold of 2 of the 4 crystals in the underworld. So realizing that Golbez has already infiltrated the castle. So as they're talking to the king, they realize that there's someone already in the crystal room as they're talking to the king.
They hear children.
Yes, the children,
they
the babies.
Hear children in the back room.
So they go back there and realize that Golbez has already infiltrated the castle.
After an awkward moment with a severed hand, the crystal gets stolen again.
I don't think it's this one.
Oh, it's not?
No.
I'm pretty sure it is.
So, realizing that Golbez has already infiltrated the castle's crystal room, the team once again fight Golbez with the assistance of a much older Rydia. So she's older now.
This is after they were separated by Leviathan.
Right. So this is where you first meet up with her again now. So after she's assumed dead, she's now come back much older.
Yep.
And I don't think I mentioned this, but she ends up going to the Fey March.
Yeah, so, it may be different in your game, but in my game it's just the land of the summoners, or the land of the summons. Basically, Leviathan, and she explains it later, Leviathan carries her to the land of the summons, and she makes friends with all of the summons there, and collects their the ability to summon them. So by the time you see her again, one, she's much older because time is different in this space, so she's matured over the time that she's been gone, but also you have all these monsters that you can call, which is awesome.
And I was wrong, by the way. This is the creepy hand.
Yeah, totally.
So when Rydia rejoins your battle and you fight Golbez, and she casts her summons and whatnot, and you end up defeating Golbez, but as you're talking, it's like his body fades away,
as
I guess,
they do,
except for his ghastly hand
that creepily crawls up the stairs, and everyone just sits there and watches it happen.
Disgusting. You touch it. No, you touch it.
And then it takes off with the crystal.
So yeah, the crystal in this hand has disappeared. So they've yet again lost another crystal. So trying to get the stolen crystal back, the team heads to the Tower of Babel, which I've been calling Bibli for whatever reason.
Bibli.
The Tower of Bibli. Only to have... so they go to the Tower of Babel, only to have the crystals moved to the upper portion of the tower in the upper world. So you're in the underworld, the tower reaches all the way up into the upper world, and the crystals are now all in this upper section of this tower. So in attempt to leave, the team needs to stop the tower's cannons from firing, in which Yang now has sacrificed himself because he... I don't know what it necessarily is that he does to stop these cannons, by the way.
He like jumps into the room, pushes everyone out, and then the room like explodes, kinda. And that's about it. And then they're just like, they have that moment of silence, and then they move on.
You know, it's like all of these sacrifices happening while charming. It's like all at once, everyone's like, well, if they did it, I might as well sacrifice myself.
Yeah, I know. It's just this bottomless pit of sacrifices.
And I don't mention it in this part either, but Sid also right after this sacrifices himself. And you find out later on that all of these people are fine.
Yeah,
but
I know.
it is an awful lot of sacrificing.
Yeah, I know.
And some of it wasn't necessary. I don't know.
Yeah.
In any case, so you have to get these stolen crystals back. So you end up going to the top, the upper world, to go into the Tower of Bibli.
Babbly.
Babel. So, on your way, you end up having to go through this cave, and over by this cave is, Eblan?
Yeah,
It's a castle that is completely deserted, by the way. And it's kind of tattered and gross, and on your way through this cave, you find the residents, survivors of this town.
Holy crap, I never realized that.
Really?
Yeah, because I went to that castle as soon as I got the first airship. I went to that castle and like looted it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I don't know what this is about, so I moved on and didn't think anything of it.
I was telling you in the stream to do that because you get a nice, I believe it's called like a blood lance or something. In any case, it's for Kane, and when you attack, it absorbs HP, which was so nice.
I totally didn't get it.
In any case, yes, that is why they're in that cave system. You find the residents in there. And the Prince of Eblan, Edge, has already gone ahead, and the King and Queen, I believe, stayed back, but he has gone ahead.
No, the King and Queen died.
I think they die in the process, eventually. But I think they're alive. Maybe not.
Oh yeah, because you fight them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So you run into the Prince, Edge, and they end up making their way into the tower, only to fall into a trapdoor that sends them all the way back down into the underworld again. So the team makes their way, after meeting up with the dwarves and Sid again, before heading to the sealed cave to retrieve the last crystal. Once the crystal is retrieved, they are once again approached by Golbez, who has regained control over Kane again and takes the crystal. So I feel like there's a lot of the same stuff happening over and over.
You have a lot of crystals.
You have a lot of crystals, and a lot of the same Golbez shows up again at the last minute.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like the Cecil's party makes no progress.
Yeah.
Like they're like, yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna make this happen, and then they fail, and then they fail, and then they fail, and it's like, why does anybody have faith in Cecil anymore?
I felt
like, it doesn't make any sense.
I really felt like the Dwarven King, every time he told him, well, he took control of the 4 crystals up top. We'll protect the one that you have, though. And then they take the crystal.
I know.
And then they take the crystal
totally
again. It was like, dude, I'm pretty sure you should leave this to the professionals.
I know, and I feel like the Dwarven King was so, like, okay with it. He was just like, well, I guess.
Just happens.
Another one bites the dust. The world's gonna end, but it'll be alright. We'll figure it out.
So, going back to the Dwarf King, the party learns about the ship, the Lunar Whale, which is crafted to go to the moon, which is where Golbez is headed with all of these crystals. So the party travels back to the surface again, and they search for the Lunar Whale, and they successfully make it to the moon, where they find the old sage, Fusoya. And Fusoya explains about the Lunarians, in particular the Lunarian Zamus, who is intending to destroy the planet so that the Lunarians can eventually take over.
Yeah, so the way I understand it is that the Lunarians traveled across the galaxy to find a new home, and on their way, they went into a slumber. And Zamus. He's first Zamus, then he turns into Zemos. No, he's Zeramos.
Zamus.
Anyway, he doesn't want to sleep. So his consciousness is still awake and is able to take control over people. And apparently, and this, a lot of this is revealed at this point when you make it to the moon, that Zemus has taken control of Golbez, who is half what was
Lunarian.
it? Lunarian, and Cecil is also.
Yes.
And they both share a common father. I don't remember his name. You remember?
Zemus?
No.
I thought it was Zemus.
No, it wasn't Zemus. It was another guy. It's okay. So in any case, they both are brothers, and that's why they're more susceptible to Zemos's control.
Yes.
Right. And for whatever reason, and I think Cecil struggles with this, on that Zemus picked Golbez instead of Cecil. To control.
So yeah.
It's a lot to ingest in that section.
Yeah.
But the
goal, it makes sense though when he explains it. Like, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is shedding more light on what's going on.
Right. So now the goal shifts from, because the tower's already activated, you have to go to destroy the tower before the tower destroys the world. And the tower is a robot.
Yes, the giant of Bibli.
Yes.
Babel. So yes, Zemus ends up activating, Golbez ends up activating the giant of Babel, which is a large robot summoned. So confronting Golbez and Cain, Fusoya breaks Zemus's control. We confront Golbez, and with Fusoya, he breaks Zemus's control over Golbez, and as a result, Cain also. So confronting Golbez and Cain, Fusoya breaks Zemus's control over Golbez, and as a result, that breaks Cain's control. And Golbez and Fusoya end up leaving the party to go to the core of the moon to confront and destroy Zemus, where he is residing. So the party meets up with Golbez and Fusoya on their own, because they've separated from the party, and they see Golbez and Fusoya trying to kill Zemus. So they cast several strong magics, and essentially it looks like Zemus is defeated. They kill his body, and all this happens. So the team gather, victory in sight, only to watch as the newly resurrected spirit of Zeramus, which is formed by the hatred and rage of Zemus, emerges and strikes down Golbez, Fusoya, and then eventually your group. So
then we get the epic Final Fantasy.
Yeah, the sacrificial energy.
Yeah.
I don't know. With the help of the allies down below, their life force reaches your party and revives them and restores their energy, giving the power to fight and kill Zeramus. And you end up having to use one of the crystals to really break his... I don't even know, his spirit. It's like
after you... I don't really understand what the crystal is supposed to signify, but that crystal, activates his true form.
His true form, yeah, because he's originally this hairy something.
Yeah. A very
his form
cold...
was very gross. But yes, and he was shivering.
Yeah, a very cold Zeramos.
So you end up having your final epic battle with your epic battle music, and you kill him, and victory over Zeramus, the party parts ways and returns, and everyone goes to rebuild their lives. Cecil and Rosa get married. Prince of Eblon becomes the king.
Yep.
Your bard is unfortunately still alive.
Yep.
And
I think Yang becomes the king of his town too.
Palom and Porum are still alive, and they're still
learning. The only one who did Tella actually die?
Tella
I think he was the only one
that died.
Who actually died.
And I believe Cain goes back to the Mountain of Ordeals or something like that. He ends up trying to really atone for his mistakes.
And Golbez
goes
returns
back to the moon with Fusoya.
And then the moon shoots off back into space. Remember that at the end?
Yeah, I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't understand it.
Yeah, so they're showing the moon, they're showing the Earth going around the sun, and the Earth has like 2 moons.
Yeah.
And then the like second moon like slowly drifts off into space.
I didn't notice
and
that.
that's why Cecil has that moment of, I think I just heard Golbez say goodbye. You know, so I think that that's what it was, that they decided to go their separate ways.
And
so
that was Final Fantasy IV.
Final Fantasy IV. No, that went really well, Kaylee.
Thanks.
I'm surprised.
I am too.
Not because you wrote it, but because we have the worst time with the stories. So
no, you filled in my gaps beautifully.
Yeah, it
Good
worked
job.
out really well. So let's kind of talk a little more on our thoughts about the story.
I liked this a lot more than the last 3 we played.
Agreed.
By like 1,000,000,000%.
Oh yeah. I completely agree. And that's probably why a lot of my scores, I feel, are on the higher side, because this one is so significantly better than the past 3 that it's like refreshing.
You know what's interesting? Me as a kid would not have liked this. This would have been boring. But me now, it kind of still is boring, but I really like it for some reason. There's something it's
a
really
mature storyline. It deals in a few like deeper aspects of, you know, your inner struggles, I think. More so as an adult. I mean, they talk a lot about how, you know, because Cecil has a problem with accepting his dark side. That he doesn't want to have this dark side, but one of the elders, I think, tells him that, you know, everyone has a dark side.
Right.
That, you know, it's just a matter of controlling that and, you know, accepting the light over the darkness. So, you know, just like there's light crystals, there's dark crystals. I mean, we kind of dealt a little bit with this with Final Fantasy 3. We dealt a little bit of the maturity in Final Fantasy 2. But this game is very much, you know...
combination of them all.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah.
I really liked the way they shelled out the characters and their backstories. I thought it was really good. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little.
Yeah.
And I am kind of a romantic when it comes to my storylines and stuff. But I thought that the love story between Cecil and Rosa I liked that it wasn't the main focus. I liked that it wasn't a main part of it. But I liked how it wasn't cheesy and it was natural. Like, they were already a thing. Like, it was just charming. I liked that about this.
I was kind of sad that there wasn't any overall development of any of the characters necessarily. Like Cecil a little bit, but
Kane a little bit.
like throughout the entire relationship between Cecil and Rosa, there wasn't any real development there.
But see, that's what I kind of liked, though.
That it was subtle.
It was subtle, yeah. Because, you know, a lot of these stories, like, with main characters finding a love interest, it's like, it was already there, you know? Right. And I kind of liked that about this. It was already established. It was charming, you know? She got kidnapped, but it wasn't... I mean, it was a big deal, but it wasn't, like... the love of my life. It
wasn't like the end sequence sort of stuff.
Yes, it was just, you know, Rose is really important, you know, and then, I don't know, it seemed natural, like real life natural type of I don't know. That was just me personally.
No, totally, yeah. I get where you're coming from. I did like how all the characters were very memorable. Like, there wasn't any character that I was like, who is this again? You know,
everyone had an important role.
Yeah.
And they each had their important part in the story.
And they all met... They all met on their own, like, terms. It wasn't a convenience sort of thing. Like, I think in Final Fantasy II, all the characters that you met, it was trying to fill a need for the gameplay, where this wasn't necessarily the case. You know, this was more of a, you know, you're meeting characters along your progression sort of thing.
Right.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know if I'm explaining it right.
No,
but...
I think you are. But more importantly, not all of the characters were characters in power at the time either. Like, the Prince of Eberron, you know, Edge was kinda, but he wasn't the king at the time.
Well, I mean, same with Edward.
Edward
Yang. Yang, I think, was just a commander.
He was just a commander, but he wasn't the king. That's someone who was in absolute power. But neither was Cecil, and that was
there was no saving the princess in this one.
Yeah.
I liked how they took the maturity of it, but they didn't turn it into a war story.
Yeah.
A lot of the previous a lot of the Final Fantasy games in general, they have like this war theme going on, where this faction is fighting this empire, and they have that going on kind of behind the scenes of the story that they're trying to tell, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
Where it was like you could tell that there was a crisis going on that the world was aware of.
Well, the world was working together.
Yeah.
Essentially, well, besides Baron.
And I mean, there was wars going on, like with the dwarves and with the Red Wings, and there was that element there.
It was a common enemy, though.
It wasn't like a big war kind of going on behind the scenes sort of thing. I specifically mentioned like 12 was a lot like that, or even 2. There was this war going on behind the scenes of the story that they were telling, and I don't know, I don't like that a whole lot.
Fair enough. Yeah, this one wasn't so much like a political war as it was
just say, hey, the world's gonna be destroyed.
Yes.
We need to save it.
I liked 90% of the characters. I hated 1. And I hated the bard.
Yeah.
I hated Edward. I thought he was so dumb. And I especially hated that in my version, he had the option to hide. He just was so cowardly to me. And not only that, but they even had his character kind of cowardly. He was, over the death of Anna, it was just so... Even Tella, Anna was his daughter. He held a lot more maturity than Edward did, and I hated that. And I really don't feel like they tried to show growth, but... I hated him so much.
What was with Edward's, like, sickness at the end?
I don't know.
Like, what? I don't really understand what was going on. It was like he was so ill that he couldn't get out of bed, but yet he had to go play his harp for something.
Wasn't he injured when Leviathan attacked?
I don't know. I don't know what it was.
I think it was just another way to remove him so that you could have new, fresh characters.
Yeah.
Maybe the developers also hated him. But I thought it was so silly that to aid you in battle, he plays his harp in the metal cave. It's like, what? Like,
and that he had to crawl over there. Like, his helpers couldn't walk over and hand him the harp. Like, he had to, physically crawl himself across the room. You have to know the struggle.
His character, I hated it so much. And, like, a bard, I don't know. I mean,
it's hard to see a harp being a weapon.
And it wasn't even...
I'm gonna hit you with my music note.
I didn't even really use his skills that much. And to be attacked by music notes, I think...
Yeah, I agree. Luckily, you don't use them that much, so it's kind of hard to knock a lot of it. Just because that was my only see him bad for, like, point. Maybe 3 hours of the game.
I haven't played all the Final Fantasies yet, but he is my strong first and the most useless character. So I did not like him at all. I thought his name was dumb. Sorry if you're an Edward. I thought
don't think there's any Edward fans.
I thought it was dumb for
Unless
this
you're talking
story.
about Twilight.
I don't think Edward itself is dumb. I think for his character. Although I didn't like Gilbert. I don't know where I got that from.
Gilbert. Some sort of alternate name
I don't
for
know
Edward.
I
don't know.
In any case. So what did you rate this?
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Oh, I gave it a 7.
Oh.
I think I would have rated it 8, but I didn't love this story, but I really liked it. So I felt like a 7 was fair.
I thought that some of the plot twists were really dumb.
Yeah.
With all these people sacrificed themselves and it was a big deal. Nope, they're not dead.
Okay, except for Tella.
Except for poor Tella.
The hand was
the hand was weird.
Unnecessary.
Also at the very when you go to the moon for the last time, they kick the girls out. the
Oh
kick
yeah,
Rosa.
that was really
and
dumb, wasn't that?
It was so stupid.
Like, why would you bring them to the moon then? What if they died?
No. The thing
Oh,
was that
that's right, they
didn't want him
stayed.
to go to the moon with them,
I see.
and it was so stupid that they were kicking them
I
out
agree.
when it was perfectly fine for them to go and do all these battles prior to the final battle. Like, that's stupid. I kind of think that it was only there to tease the player as oh, you're gonna lose your most important characters. Oh no, we're just
Maybe.
kidding.
I don't know.
It was really stupid. It was only maybe 5 minutes, but it was stupid that they played this whole like, you're girls, you need to go.
It came across very, we're men. This is
Yeah.
men's battles, and it was dumb. It was
what
too
I thought also was really
cliche.
funny is like Edge and Kane, who's with Cecil. It's Edge, Kane, Cecil, Rosa, and Rydia. And the boys kick the girls out, and then when they surprisingly come back, somehow they stowed away
You're
on
like,
the
well,
ship.
this is all of our battle.
Yeah, and then it's just like, oh well, it's okay now since they're already here, I guess. Like, I don't know. I just
Like, you might as well follow through and be like, what are you doing?
I was
here?
really kind of upset about
was
that
really
part.
dumb. I
It was
agree.
so stupid. It kind of played like I saw where like Final Fantasy VII was drawing from, like this whole like, no, I don't want to get you involved sort of thing, and I didn't like it. I just
It
didn't
was
like
dumb.
it.
The last minute is a little.
Yeah.
Maybe if we were like this kind of long, like, you really shouldn't be going.
I don't
want to
get you involved, Rosa. You really should go back home. Yeah, maybe I would understand that being in.
It was a little too late at this point.
It's hard telling if maybe it was a translation error, because I've heard that this game has a ton of translation
Oh.
errors in it, or like translation just issues in general. However, I think that they were supposed to fix a lot of that for the version that you played. So if it was like that for you, then I guess that's what they were planning on doing.
The only thing that I really interpreted it as is maybe they thought they were going to die. Like, they just were going. The possibility of dying is more extreme than in those other cases.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because, I mean, they were going with Golbez, Fusea. You knew that this was a very powerful
Maybe they
enemy.
weren't going to come back.
Yes.
Maybe they were going to blow up the moon. Who knows?
And, I mean, really, Rydia's was a very important person because she was the last summoner.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Rosa is Kane's love, so...
Yeah. I just... That part really punctured a hole in the storyline.
Yeah, I
that I
completely
didn't like.
forgot about it till you said something. But yeah, I felt that same way when I saw that.
Otherwise, I like the seriousness we talked about.
Yeah.
I like the characters.
Who was your favorite character?
Oh, probably Rydia.
Really?
Yeah.
I really like Kane. That was...
Yeah.
I like those kinds of characters, though.
I liked Cecil as a Dark Knight.
Yeah, I
just because he looked cooler. When he turns into a paladin, he gets this long, luscious hair. I just can't do it.
It's like white. I don't know.
And then Kane does it too. At the
Kane's
very
got,
end,
like, blonde
he has
hair.
the like long blonde hair that's like blowing in the breeze at the very end. It's just stupid.
I don't know. I just... Cecil's type of character, I'm just... And it's with most... Commonly, you find that with main characters are kind of like that, but... And it was a toss-up between Cecil and Kane that I really liked their characters. And for some reason, I liked Edge.
I really didn't like Edge.
Really?
Yeah, I thought he was too, like, cocky.
He was a little too cocky. I think I liked his design, and when he was being serious, he was fine. I didn't really like Tella a whole lot.
I liked Rydia because her character design was really cool. The artwork, the official artwork that they actually have for her looks really neat. I like her development. It was small, but like, you know how she was afraid of fire because her village was burned down, and then she overcame that. You know, the summoning fights were really cool, where you had to fight for the summons, you know, prove yourself.
I think normally the like aging all at once, I think normally I wouldn't like that, but it worked in this situation.
It did, yeah, it totally did. And the way they explained it, how, well, time works different in where I went, and I was just like, okay, that makes sense.
They explained it, that was what we appreciated.
Yeah, they weren't just like, well, she looks different now. Not sure what happened.
Well, and it was more fitting because obviously they couldn't keep bringing a child with them.
Right.
And I don't know, it works out really well, I thought. It was nice seeing her more mature and adult, too.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. So you ready to move on?
Yeah.
Alright, so graphics. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I gave it a 7.
I thought that the summons looked really good. They were animated
Absolutely,
enough.
yeah.
The magic looked really cool. Again, it was kind of brief. I would have preferred to have it a little bit more animation to it, but I was okay with it.
I wasn't too... I didn't really notice the magic a whole lot, I'll have to say
The
that.
fire looks really powerful, even though most of the time it wasn't.
Yeah, the fire did look really powerful.
Lightning, like the threes. Lightning 3,
Yeah.
Ice 3, Fire 3, they all looked really cool.
I didn't use a whole lot of magic, to be
Really?
honest. Yeah,
I used a lot.
I used a lot of physical attacks.
The monsters, for the most part, looked really cool.
There was quite a few palette swaps, though.
I did notice that, but I didn't feel like that it was...
Too bad. Like, they could be.
It wasn't really in, like, the same areas.
Yeah.
Like, it was palette swapped just enough that it made it seem like...
These enemies are harder.
No, it really just made it seem
Oh.
like it was the same enemy. They just happened to be
In a
in both
different-
places.
I see.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, this one's drastically yellow and this one's drastically blue.
I see what
I mean,
you're
they did
saying.
that a little bit with the dragons. They did that a little bit with the skeletons, but that was about it that I noticed. The babies were kind of creepy.
The babies.
They were dolls. They were dolls.
We've been calling them babies.
Because they look like babies.
They look like babies. And you fight this, like, giant baby after all the little babies join together to make... Which,
Yeah.
when you think about it, is horrifying.
Oh,
Even
I know,
if I'd
yeah.
seen dolls doing that, I was like, oh
that
my
would
gosh.
be nightmare fuel for sure.
Yes.
If this game was made today, that scene would be
creepy.
scary like
Yes.
crazy.
I didn't like, and this isn't like that huge of a deal really, but I didn't like that the underworld and the moon, like the layout of like the land it felt like it was kind of underdone. Like, I kind of get why it's underdone because obviously it's the underworld and the moon, but
Like there wasn't enough.
yeah,
Of it?
something. It was like it was just too much of the same thing. Like, if you had made like the normal world just all grass, that's kind of how it felt. You know
I see
what I
what you
mean?
mean. Yeah, I liked that. I liked that they had the 3 different
That was
areas
cool.
that you could go to. I liked the exploration between all of them. I didn't really like that you had to have certain items to be able to get around to everything. Like, to get to this place, you have to have the chocobo. To get to this place, you have to have the airship or the hover
that was kind of
thing.
that's more gameplay, but
Yeah, you're right.
that
That said,
they had
though,
chocobos.
yeah, they had chocobos. They had a lot of different
types
methods.
of chocobos. You had the black chocobo, the white chocobo.
And the regular chocobo, yep. And that was really neat. I liked that they did have a lot of different transportation methods. They had the 3-4 different airships or something.
Yeah, it was a lot.
They had the hovercraft. They had the ship.
I was most impressed, really, with the boss sprites. They were, and even some of the enemies in the end. They just were really well done. They were intimidating, kind of like the death mask or whatever it was. And I was like, don't fight them, Danny. I was like, that thing when it popped up on my screen the first time, I'm like, I was like, I didn't even want to fight him because I was like, this looks dangerous.
Yeah.
The dragons were pretty cool.
The dragons looked really neat. Leviathan looked stupid.
Leviathan did look really dumb. I was really
Did he look dumb in
disappointed.
your game too?
Yeah, he looked pretty much the same.
He reminded me exactly of in Family Guy. There's an episode where Brian gets his teeth knocked out, and so his jaw is flabby, and he's lost all of his teeth.
That's
And
what it reminds me of.
it reminded me of that. Leviathan's jaw was all red, and his teeth were just little nubs, and he just looked like he had been beat up already. He just looked stupid. So yeah, I really didn't like his design at all.
Bahamut, I felt like he was really small. For
He
being
was
the
really
king
small.
of
Yeah, I
dragons, he
know.
was not very intimidating at all.
But his move was
His
awesome.
move was awesome, but like when I'm fighting dragons with my
And
when
this
I
itty bitty
summon,
little dragon comes
I was
down.
like,
Yeah,
wait, come on, and like
it could have been
most,
more epic.
you know, when you think about Bahamut, you think about some of these Final Fantasies that we've already played. These buff
Yeah,
dragons.
these
He's the
big,
king of
monstrous
dragons, and
yeah.
here he is. This.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I gave graphics a 7 out of 10. It was.
Yeah, I think the worst for me was I didn't like how some of the dungeons had repetitive tile like textures.
Some
Like
of them,
they didn't not between different dungeons, but like within the dungeon itself, it was really kind of hard to maybe it was a contrast thing. Like if the floor was a little bit more contrasting to the walls or the like
I see.
the non-accessible areas, just so that I can see where I'm going. Like in some of the tower stuff, you can't even see where the
tower
platforms
was the
are. It's like
worst.
it's so
Yeah.
chaotic that you don't really know what's going on there.
Personally, because most of those dungeons are so easy to navigate, I really didn't notice a whole lot. Because I used the guide, to be fair,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't be able to beat the game
I didn't have
without it.
too much problems with navigating the dungeons.
Well, I guess
there was a little bit in the longer ones that it's like, have I been here before?
My
I don't
point
know.
being is, with the guide, it made it quicker, and so I was in and out. The dungeons were not particularly long, which was great for me personally. Because you know, with the time crunch, I just don't have enough time to be sitting there going without the guide. But I didn't notice personally. But the last dungeon, yes, absolutely, it was really, especially that last part right before the boss,
like
final boss.
crystal area. Yeah.
It looked like you could slide off the panel and just die.
I think they do that well so far in the first 3.
I remember
they've
the
done that a
second
lot with like this glass palace sort of look where everything looks really shiny and
Everything
slippery.
looks breakable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you break something. I'm the only one here. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that was it.
What'd you give it?
For what?
Like a score.
For what? Graphics?
Yeah.
8.
8. Did you say that already?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
When we first started.
Oops.
It's fine. So let's move on to gameplay. We'll probably talk for a half hour on gameplay.
Easy, typical turn-based. I like the interchangeable types of weapons for certain characters.
It was typical turn-based, but they did introduce in this one the active time battle system.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Which made
it made a little more challenging. It made me really rushed and certain. I'm like, okay, I have to get in here quick.
Yeah, see, but what's funny is they have moments where it's like, oh my gosh, I need to really focus and choose my options quickly and, you know, efficiently. However, I also had these times where I was sitting and nothing was happening. Because you're waiting for these bars to fill up kind of in the background that you don't ever really see. Like time counters to clock down before anybody can attack. So it's like you have moments where both the enemies and your characters are waiting to attack, so you're just stuck like, what's happening? Are we going to do anything? Is someone going to go? I had way too much of that, and that drove me insane. So because of that, I feel like the battle system was slow, though it wasn't really. So it's tough. It's funny.
I had the fortunate ability to auto battle, and I set my cursor up, and I really didn't use it till the end when I had to fight enemies
to level grind,
and I hated level grinding because you didn't really get a whole lot of XP unless you were in those battles that summoned other monsters. But I put my cursor to memory so that I could just do my same set of stuff, which helps, especially when I was casting Bahamut over and over. It's a long kind of move, so when I hit auto, it sped up significantly, which helped.
Yeah, I didn't have that. I
That
didn't
luxury.
have that option. I didn't have the option for memory cursor either. So I had to pick every single item by hand, by memory. And there were fights where all my characters were on the verge of dying, and I am panicking to pick the right options, and I'm either picking the wrong spell or I'm picking the wrong character to use it on.
When I was in my menus, the battle stopped. Like the counters stopped. Not for you. That
Nope.
sucks.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
While I'm choosing stuff, things are happening in the background. So it's funny. It's like this. It's like this conflict. It was slow sometimes, and it was fast paced other times. It made it fun. Like,
It made it a challenge.
overall, if you look at the wide scope of the entire game, that battle system made it fun. But those times where I was sitting, not doing anything, nothing was happening on screen,
seemed like
was
the battle
very
dragged.
frustrating. Also, the battles were long in general, and I think it's because all of the enemies had relatively high experience, and all of your guys didn't deal that, or they had high HP, but the guys weren't dealing all that much damage. So it was like you weren't doing a whole lot of one-hit KOs. Every enemy took multiple turns to kill them.
You beat the game at like what, level 50?
I think it was
like 52
like 50,
area?
like somewhere between 50 and 55.
I beat it almost at level 60, and before I got to before I got to the last part of the dungeon, the first part, I was comfortable, and the battles did not last long, but it took a while to get there. So once you were at a certain level, it was like, but you had to, there was like certain points in the game where you really had to stop and level grind to match up to, it was like all of a sudden the enemies were just harder.
I didn't have any problems with that.
Oh, really?
Now, my version, I think, was dumbed down for Americans. So I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but I have heard a lot of people say that as a fact.
Yeah.
That the and I played the original Super Nintendo version, that it was significantly easier than what it was supposed to be. Now, I did level grind a couple times. I didn't really feel like it was necessary, but I did it because I had time to kill, and I liked picking up and playing it. So, I did spend maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours max level grinding. Again, I didn't really notice any difficulty. Like, even in the final battles, the final dungeon, I did fight a lot, but I didn't feel like it was necessary.
How did you feel about the last boss? Was it
was a lot
hard, or
no, it wasn't hard at all.
It was just long. It just took a while to get his HP
It
down.
was long, but it was kind of expectingly long. Yeah. I was expecting going in, to a hard fight. It wasn't a hard fight, so there was that. Like, I had no problems keeping everyone alive. I had no problems. Like, his big move was the Big Bang attack.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't that big.
Bang.
Yeah. I think it was just Big Bang. In Dragon Ball Z, it's Big Bang attack. Big Bang attack! Sorry, I'm a Dragon Ball Z fan. So, wait. Yeah, it wasn't that.
Items. This is a two-parter for me. But I know this one was frustrating for you too.
Yeah, it was.
When I went in to buy items, which this is just always how it's always been. I would buy one at a time. Really? So I would stack like 5. Like I would decide to buy 5 instead of just moving 5 over. But by doing that, each one of those would fill a slot. Now, if I bought 5, 5 would fill a slot.
Mm-hmm.
So it would stack, and you're only allowed so many, so you'd have to go in, reorganize, and buy more, because otherwise you're out of space. Now, when I went to equip, if I didn't, if I had, say, a sword and I got a new sword that I liked, I couldn't go in and equip that sword. I would have to go in, discard something to make a spot so that I could just switch them. They wouldn't just switch them; they would unequip mine to re-equip mine. They wouldn't let me do that.
I never really had a problem with a full inventory.
Oh man, so I did it all the time.
Maybe that was the big thing for me.
Even key items. At the very end, I had to discard something so that I could have the crystal.
Really?
Yes. It was so dumb.
Interesting. No, I didn't have any problems with that at all. I did have problems with my inventory where, like you're saying, it would make a new line and it wouldn't stack, right?
Your sort button was all the way at the bottom.
That was my biggest complaint. Was that my sort button?
You didn't even know you had one.
I know. It was like halfway through.
There it is.
I was halfway through the game when I finally had enough items to make it to the bottom of the item menu, and that's where I found my sort button. And once I did, it made everything significantly easier. Because I was like clicking on, cure that had 5 and cure that had 1. And I would go over to the 1 and drag it over to the 5 to make 6. And it was so tedious. But yeah, once I found that sort button, it was one button, bloop, and everything would just condense and it would be fine.
Tedious kind of a story, I guess. But the metal cave they end up doing, you have to equip leather items. I thought that was kind of cool. It sucked. I hated it. But I thought the concept was kind of cool.
It wasn't too bad. I
kept telling him, like, Danny, unequip everything.
No,
what are you doing?
I understood once things were happening. I think the worst dungeon for me was probably the Doors dungeon.
The Doors?
Where you fight the demon wall.
Oh, I didn't have any problems with that one.
I didn't have any problems with the demon wall. I just really hated the doors.
I had the guide
that you had to open up. Oh yeah. And that's the thing. I had the guide. I didn't use it. And it was more, for me, I like that challenge. I'm kind of learning to like that challenge.
I have a baby, so
right, yeah.
I have to use my guide.
The first time I played through all of the Final Fantasy games, I used the guides 100%.
Yeah.
Where now I'm finding that I'm realizing how to play the game without the guides, where if you talk to the right people, you can find the information that you need to continue on.
I like that, but my problem is, first of all, I'm impatient, but I am not crazy about dungeon crawling.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
And after, like, the first few times, in fact, the first part of the game, I really didn't use the guide. But after a while, it was like, okay, I've got to beat the game. I really don't want to sit in this dungeon all day, going back and forth.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which is another kind of con to this gameplay, is the battle step encounter. Sometimes
the encounter rate is insanely high.
You'll take a step, and then you go into a battle. You take another step, you go into a battle. Then you take like a billion steps, and you could run through the whole dungeon. And
I've had it where I can go, barely make it 1-2 steps, and hit a battle every time, and then I can go from room to room to room, no battles. It's bizarre. Yeah, that was insanely frustrating. And then on top of that, each battle took really a longer amount of time than it probably should.
Yeah.
So it was like I felt like
you would just run away.
Yeah, I felt like running away was a better option, especially when it was like battle after battle. It's like, no, I'm not gonna sit and fight the same guys over again. It's not worth the experience. Like, I'll just wait until the next 3 steps when I have to fight him again.
I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't a whole lot of side quests for this one.
There really wasn't. There was, I think I did maybe 3.
Did you get the Excalibur? Do you have to get the Excalibur?
You don't have to, but I did do that.
I got the adamant armor, and you have to...
I didn't get that.
There's a certain item that these pink flan drop, and these pink flan, I think you can encounter them in like 1 or 2 other spots, but really the best place to get them is in the last dungeon in this one room.
I didn't see any pink flan.
You have like a very small percentage, and I encountered them my first time when I went in this room. But otherwise, you use this item. Mine, I believe, it's either called Siren or Alert, and it automatically engages in these pink flan battles. Well, I only had so many on them because I didn't realize I was going to need so many of this item, so I only stacked up like 5.
Yeah.
So I would save it, run back up to this dungeon and fight them, not get this item dropped because it was like a small percentage chance. Yeah. And by then, the game was already almost beat, so that's when you hadn't even started yet, so I was working on that side quest. I only got 1, but it was enough for me to...
I got the Excalibur, and then I got all of the summons, I think.
I did that too.
Bahamut was one that you didn't have to get.
Did you get Yang's...
Odin was one that you didn't have to get.
Did you get the kitchen knife with Yang's wife?
I couldn't find it. You had to go to Yang's wife to...
Yeah.
I tried to find her, and I couldn't find her.
Oh, really?
So I just gave up. I didn't care.
What was the kitchen knife for?
You throw
just to throw it? That
and
was
it does not. It's a guaranteed 999.
Oh, I threw it. Yeah. I must not have noticed how much damage it did. Because I'm pretty sure
it was either that or it was a spoon.
I think it was a knife.
Well, I remember a playthrough that I was watching not too long ago where they threw a spoon and it was 999.
Oh, well,
either way, I mean, there were items that you could throw. I don't know.
So yeah, kitchen item.
Let's see, what else do I got on my notes? The menu problems in general. For my version, and I'm positive they fixed this for you. The sort thing was a problem. the R and L buttons didn't switch between characters. So like if I'm
I didn't have that
equipping,
ability to switch
oh,
between.
you couldn't. Okay.
I'd have to either parry or though I guess I didn't check.
No, in the menu when you're equipping.
Oh, I see.
So like
that sucks.
I'm on Cecil and I'm equipping a sword and then I'm clicking R and L and I can't do anything.
I wondered why you weren't doing that. I noticed you weren't doing that. Yep. I was like, that's
because I can't.
I wasn't gonna correct you, but...
And then when you're using a curative item or spell, you have to do it. You have to go through the menu each time to use it. So like, for example, I'm using 5 cures on Cecil to heal him up. I would have to go into the items menu, choose cure, choose Cecil. Then it would go back and I would have to choose items, cure, Cecil. Items, cure, Cecil. Items, cure, Cecil.
The way they named your items. I hated it.
Yeah, that was tough too. Yep.
Also,
the items and the spells were pretty challenging.
I hated that you could only have 2 characters in the back row. You couldn't move like 3 in the back row. Yep. I thought that was kind of dumb.
Yep. I thought that too. Because the back row was like the place to be.
And it was frustrating. It was challenging, which was a good thing, but it was frustrating that a back attack from the troop behind made your back characters in the front row.
You can change, you know?
Yeah, I know. It was just an extra challenge.
Yeah.
Because, I could attack with my best attacker, or I could swap my roles. Well, why would I do that if maybe I can quickly... Yeah. I also had one small problem with mostly the lunar whale, but I hated when you wanted to go to the ground, you would have to go into your ship, leave your ship, go to the ground. You couldn't just land and you couldn't just hit a button to go back. Because, the lunar whale, you have these...
You had the, inside that you could roam around.
Well, you could heal your characters down below. And it's like the layout was weird. I didn't know how to get to the ground, because there's a little door that looks like part of the ship. And then
it's like a little hatch.
Several times I forgot which one went to the moon and which one let you just control the ship.
Run in and you would hit the crystal and off you'd go. Like, oh crap.
Just go to the moon real quick. Oops, my bad.
I'll be back. Yeah, I had that problem too a few times.
I mean, I have a lot bad marked down, but it wasn't like it was that bad.
No.
I think for you it seemed more bad, because for me it wasn't nearly as bad. There's just minor annoyances.
I think that's really all it is that I remember all of the annoying things about this game, that the good stuff kind of got diluted.
But I mean, this game, it was...
The battle system for its time was revolutionary. And... especially when you're looking at the last Final Fantasy game that North America had was Final Fantasy 1. Going from 1 to this game is enormous. It was amazing. So, I mean, that alone, I really feel like that, I had problems with it, but I'm used to some of the newer games.
Right.
So, it wasn't that bad. It was playable. Absolutely. It was fun. It kept me engaged the whole time. I didn't set my controller down mid-battle ever. Although I wanted to a few times, but even the long waiting times where nothing was going on yet it was frustrating, but overall it wasn't that big of a deal. It was maybe 30 seconds.
Truthfully, there really wasn't much to get wrong with this. It was very straightforward. You're really story chasing, you're just really the most of the gameplay is in the battle and the equip system.
Was there any time that you were, well, I guess not because you had the guide, but was there any time that you felt stuck?
If I forgot, if I set it down for more than a couple days,
you didn't know where you were.
I didn't know where I was, and I'd really have to think about it. I hated that I couldn't see a map without using a spell. That was kind of frustrating.
There was a spell to use the map?
Yeah, if you use sight or something, it would show you. Yeah,
I had sight. I had no idea what it did.
I didn't know that either. I think I had read it in the book at one point. I'm like, oh,
wow. Yeah, well, see, and that was another problem with my game is that I had no descriptions of stuff. Like the carrot. I had no idea what the carrot was because it didn't give you any description. It was just a carrot.
I don't think they called it the carrot in my version.
It was probably a goshel green or something like that.
My guide, whoever made it, was kind of funny. I felt like I was with this person. I could feel this person writing it. It was really weird. But the guide... Which I realize has nothing to do with the game, but the guide kind of had me kind of tripping a few times, but it was convenient, these little things that was said. It was like, if you get lost, use this. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That stuff.
The only time that I had a big problem that I almost used the guide for was when you are stuck, when you're underground and you have the airship, but the airship can't go over the lava.
Yeah.
I didn't know that Sid was there. So it was like I was running around all over the place trying to find something to do.
Right.
It's like you go into the castle, you talk to the king, and he's like, yeah, you need to go over here. But you can't get over there.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't know what to do for the longest time. So then I finally was like, okay, there's got to be one person inside the castle, one dwarf, that has one line of text that tells me what I need to do. Sure enough, I walk in, the first dwarf I talk to is like, hey, there's a weird character down in the thing. And I'm like, okay. So I went there and there was Sid. And I'm like, okay, that's why.
I felt like the thing with Rosa, did you notice that she's like in this bed and you don't say anything about it? It's like, oh, Rosa's here and she's dying. If I was Cecil, but Rosa, what are you doing here? There really was a dialogue for her.
Yeah.
And if you don't talk to her before you move on to Demacian, you can't move past Tella. Tella's just like, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I did.
You gotta go back and talk to her.
Well, I didn't even go into that town first.
Oh, yeah.
I went straight into the cave. And when you go into the cave, he's just like, I don't need you kids here, and kicks you out. And it's like, dude, what the heck? So then I leave and I come back, and once I come back with Rosa, he's like, hey guys, I need some help.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you didn't need help 5 seconds ago. We were a bunch of kids. Yeah, totally. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the only time that I was stuck. I was really expecting a harder fight with the demon wall, because I kind of had this built-in anxiety when I was fighting the demon wall, like, oh my gosh, it's coming closer. I have a limited amount of time. Like, I need to choose items really, really, really fast. And, I did it first try. It wasn't too big of a deal, but I felt like I was really close, and I was right on the edge of my seat. It kind of made that fight more fun than the Zeramos fight.
Yeah. Did you have problems with the summon fight? I think it might have been Edge's parents that I think about, but I don't know. But the like lady with the different faces, that summon Asura or something like that.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I didn't understand how to do that fight.
I had somebody in the stream that was helping me on that one.
Oh really?
And let's see, the trick was, oh man, I don't remember. Oh, you had to do reflect or wall. You had to use reflect on her, and she would just reflect all of her spells onto you.
I didn't think about that.
And then once you do that, then it's just kind of physical attacks all the way.
I see, because she's casting like cure.
Yeah,
and all these weird stuff.
So what did you do? You just get lucky?
I just ended up. I mean, I was high enough leveled that I just ended up beating her down.
Oh,
but...
yeah, that was the only way. That was the way that I did it. The hardest fight and the only game over that I had was with Odin.
Oh, really?
I fought Odin 4 times. I fought him twice. Like, I was like, I don't know if I was underleveled or just I didn't have the right equipment set up. And I fought him and he like demolished me in like seconds.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So then, the same guy in the stream, awesome dude, big fan of Final Fantasy IV. I don't remember his handle off the top of my head, but he was helping me get all the... He helped me get the Excalibur, which I think I would have figured out on my own, but it would have taken me some work. Yeah. I think the hardest thing about the Excalibur side quest was finding
the cave. Yeah.
No. Oh. Finding the guy in the forge.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea that little town was down there. It's just like one little like pixel on the map. I had no idea it was there. So that would have been challenging, but I would have figured it out. But then I went to the moon and got oh no, I didn't get Kane yet. I went to the moon, got the Excalibur. I think I did all the summon stuff, so I had Bahamut. Yeah. And then after I had Excalibur and Bahamut, I went back to fight Odin, and I died on my first try, but then I did it again, and I killed him on the fourth. My fourth attempt, I finally killed him.
I don't remember how many times I died through this game. I'm pretty sure I can count it on one hand, but Odin was the easiest one for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have to say the hardest boss I had problems with was the last dungeon, right next to the save cave point, that eye thing. I just wasn't high enough level. I was dying just before I could kill him, because he cast death on everyone. I know what you're talking about. But, it was if I just had, a couple more seconds, I probably could have killed him.
Yeah.
But after I leveled up, I was fine. But that was, my hardest one.
Odin, for me, I didn't really consider... it was a game over, but it wasn't really, because he was so fast at... I just felt like I had to get the strategy right. I didn't really feel like it was a game over because it was this, optional thing.
Right, yeah.
In the main game, doing all of the normal stuff, I didn't have any game overs. I see. I went through the game no problem. If it wasn't for Odin, I wouldn't have had any game overs. But... yeah, Odin, I fought him 4 times. The first 2 times was just me testing him out to figure out what's going on. Third time was just a bad attempt, and then the 4th time I had my party set up just right so that he would like to target Rydia, but I needed to have Rydia cast Bahamut.
Oh, that's so I moved switching the rows.
I moved her to the back, and once I did that, he didn't attack her. She was able to cast Bahamut, and between Kane and Cecil doing 2,000-3,000 damage, he went down pretty good. So
you caught it pretty close on the monster I was telling you about just earlier that was casting death. You were one more turn and it would have been
literally
over.
Kane had died and the other 3 were
on their zeros.
They were on zeros. Yeah, they were on zeros, and it was maybe my last attack killed him.
You were really lucky on that one. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh man.
I thought the same thing. I had that feeling when the counter got to 2, I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. Yeah. It's not gonna happen. It was 1, and I'm like, nope, I'm dead. 0, I'm so dead.
Dead now.
I'm so dead. And then I'm like, oh, woo, that was close.
Yeah, that's
that
really
was
funny.
probably the closest call that I had.
I have to say,
I didn't fight the sword.
The sword?
Yeah, so there was the save point. There was the room with the eyeball guy.
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
The next place had another guy. I think it was another eyeball guy or something. But then later on, there's a sword just chilling.
There's more than what you fought.
Oh yeah, I saw one at the very beginning. And
yes,
I don't remember
that's
what that
the first sword, and the second sword you didn't get, but both of those are for Edge.
Ah, gotcha.
But yeah, I didn't do all of it, but I did. Those.
By the time I made it to the final
I just want to
dungeon,
fight. That's how I felt too. And honestly, some of those enemies were harder than the last boss.
Oh man, speaking of the behemoths.
Oh yeah, the behemoths. Those were hard.
They weren't too bad, but in the dungeon with Bahamut, there's 3 of them.
You have to encounter them at a certain square.
there's 3 there's 3 of them, and you don't know where they're at necessarily unless you
have the guide.
Yeah, or you're practiced in the game that you know where they're at. But they are pretty close together, and I wasn't leveled enough to be able to take them on very well. The first one caught me off guard. I took it down without too much of a problem. The second one I wasn't prepared for. I was kind of hoping for a save point first, and it never came, and I'm like, oh crap. So then I fought the second behemoth, and it went down okay. The third one I fought right away, and I'm like, crap. I'm like,
I'm dead.
I'm dead. Yeah, I was already dead. I didn't have enough MP. I'm like, how am I gonna get through? I actually paused the game and sat there, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I just sat there and looked at the screen how am I gonna get through this? And I think I used an elixir, and that was the only elixir that I used outside of the final boss.
Yeah, I saved a lot of mine too.
I'm just I'm gonna use an elixir on Rosa to be able to heal everyone back up. And then I just knocked him out. And then I'm like, okay, so now I need a save point to be able to fight Bahamut. And the guy that I talked about in the chat room, he was like, you'll be fine, just go in and fight it. So I'm like, alright, I'll just do it. So I jumped in, and all you had to do was cast Reflect on everybody.
Yeah.
And Bahamut's move just reflects and hits Bahamut instead, and it was a cakewalk. So that was the other point that I was on the edge of my seat, I don't know if I can do this. I'm gonna die. But yeah, there was only a few of those moments, but
thankfully
it made the game fun.
My guide thankfully had a guide as to what ideally and I usually
What
was
your
like,
level should be.
I was usually like 5 levels behind till I decided to really sit down and grind my level, because I knew once I got to the moon I'd really want to be high level anyway.
Yeah.
But I took on, I don't think I had very many deaths. I think most of them was probably with that stupid eyeball guy.
Yeah,
So,
really.
yeah. But I think there was like 1 or 2 somewhere that was kind of weird.
Like wonky.
Yeah.
Just not paying attention.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Or if I didn't understand the how the strategy would be.
Yeah. I had a few fights where I was chit-chatting in the chat, either with you or with somebody else, and I looked down and like half of my party's dead. I'm like, crap, dang it, I need to heal up.
You know, saving your elixirs, that mentality, I have that too, but lately, especially with games like I'm familiar with, lately I've been a little more lenient with my elixir usage, only because by the time I get to the final boss, I don't ever use them all. Never. In fact, I'll end the game with like 5 mega elixirs, and there was...
I have this like deep-rooted feeling.
Save your elixirs, you might need them.
Yeah, and I think that it stems from like early childhood
when you don't level efficiently.
Yeah, where you're not high enough level, you don't have a good strategy down, you don't really know what you're doing.
Right.
So it's just I need all the elixirs I can get. And I just have carried that throughout all of my games. So now when you get to the final boss, one, they're typically fairly easy anymore. I haven't had any problems with any of the final bosses since recently since we started the podcast. And you get to the final boss and it's like, well, I guess I have to use my elixirs.
Right.
I've been saving them for this. I'm like, I may as well use them. And at this point, it's like overkill. Like, you don't need them.
Your guy's at like 50 HP. Well, I guess this is as good a time as any to be using this elixir now.
It's like giving him another shot of steroids. Like, he doesn't need more.
Don't drink all your elixirs in one day. Oh, it's too funny.
So yeah, I mean,
that's a lot of gameplay.
A lot of gameplay. Did we talk about our score?
I gave it an 8.
I also gave it an 8. Yeah. It's funny, it's like the first half of the gameplay that we talked about was all the bad stuff. and then we went from like, this game is awful to praising it like crazy. So
well, it does make me feel, because I had a lot written down for bad and like one thing for good. So it makes me feel a little more justified in giving it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah. What'd you think about the music?
Oh man, 10 out of 10.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Seriously?
I loved this music like right out of the gate. What'd you give it? I want to know.
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Which is more than usually.
I was expecting like a 6.
Because usually.
The way you reacted, I'm like, uh-oh.
You know how I am, because usually I give them really low scores.
Yeah.
I did really like this music, but if you were to play music for me, I don't think I'd know it was from 4. Actually, the fun thing that me and my husband have been doing lately is we have a Pandora station for Final Fantasy music, and when music pops up, we play the game of guessing.
I do this too. Oh my gosh,
that's Final Fantasy 9.
My last job where I spent a lot of time driving around.
Oh yeah.
I had an app on my phone. I don't have it anymore, but I had an app on my phone that I could remote all of my music in. I use Google now, but I had this different app where I could remote all my music in, and I would just take my folder of Final Fantasy music and randomize it, and then I would play this game with myself. I had nobody else to hang out with while I'm on these long car rides between buildings, and I would just play that playlist and just guess which game it's from, and I loved doing this. That was so much fun.
And that is a lot of fun, but what I was going to say is, doing this, there's like barely anything for 4. I think 1 or 2 might have popped up, but I guess maybe the music's underrated, because the music's good. Don't get me wrong, it is good. Yeah. Some of it got a little repetitive, like the last dungeon kind of got. Maybe it's because there's so many encounters.
I think it's how the game is set up. So okay, here's what I feel about the music. Amazing score all the way through. Every song I felt was really, 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 really good. They used the SNES stuff, like the SNES limitations, to the best of their ability. Uematsu is a genius, and you really see it in this game. you can see where they've had other games influence from this game. A lot of the sounds, like I could pick out small sounds and I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds like Final Fantasy VII, or this sounds like Final Fantasy IX. Like I could pick out these little like
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
melodies that they've reused over the years. And I loved it. I loved that. It was so cool.
A little unrelated, but I haven't played 6 yet. But Brandon's been playing 6 today, and a lot of that I heard 7.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I played 6 the first time through, where a lot of the score is like, oh my gosh, this sounds so much like 7.
Yep.
And I had a lot of that in this. I know 7's soundtrack like the back of my hand, so I had a lot of that when I played this game where I'm like, these sounds, I recognize these sounds from 7.
That's how I am with 9.
So, you can tell that the same person composed, all of these games, but in this game really solidified the Final Fantasy feel. I mean, you had Final Fantasy 1 where you kind of established some of the like bass melodies and like, the fanfare and the crystal theme and some of that. But this score was just so great all the way through. There was one song in particular that I kind of had a problem with, and it was the final boss song. It wasn't that great. It wasn't that epic. And there was like a weird like whiny noise in like a section of the song that I hated. I couldn't stand that sound. The repetitiveness that you're talking about, I am contributing it to gameplay because I think it's just the way that they built the game. Basically, after every battle, the game restarts the soundtrack in the dungeon that you're in. So if you
starts off kind of
well, if you're running like the final battle specifically, you're running through it and it's like, okay, I just want to get to the final boss. I'm just gonna run from everything. When you're doing that, it's like you run. You have 2 steps, you get into a fight, you run. You have 2 steps, you get into a fight, you run. So all you hear is the very first da 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 da, and then you get into a battle.
You already know what song I'm talking about.
And then you get into a battle again. So, it feels repetitive, though it's not really, because they don't reuse it throughout, multiple dungeons. They don't necessarily, it doesn't loop within the dungeon itself. Like if you were to sit and just let the theme song play off, it wouldn't loop, but maybe once every 10 minutes. But you don't see that because of how the battle thing works out. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I really did like this music, but unfortunately, I can't think of anything memorable off the top of my head right now.
I'm getting heated up. Like I'm getting worked up. I'm passionate about this.
Maybe I remember some of their themes, like Rydia's and stuff like that, but I don't know.
The Red Wing theme is really good. That's what they open with.
Yeah, that
the
one was
moon.
good.
I think the moon sounds were really cool. The wah 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 wah. I liked that too. The airship themes were really good. The Chocobo theme was kind of blah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, you don't really need Chocobos all that much. It's more of just they're there because they're trying to establish a mascot, I think, or something. I don't know. Did you know that the Chocobos stem from a character? The chocolate Choco Balls. Yeah.
Choco Balls.
Choco Balls, yeah. They're little candies, little chocolate candies. I actually bought some, and I have a little Chocobo figure from the Choco
cute.
Ball. Yeah, it's cute. Anyway.
In not really my defense, but a lot of this game, like the very beginning, I kind of forgot about it, to be honest. And I really have been writing the summary out. I was like, all right. I think if I played this through again, I would feel that way about the music. I'm willing to bet. If I paid more close attention, to be like, yeah, it's this music. And I do remember feeling that way, but it was like I had a break for a while when I was waiting for you to finish that I just kind of started doing my own thing.
That's probably the difference between the way that I played and the way that you played. I played
all at once,
pretty much straight through. Yeah, I knocked it out in less than a month, and the last half I played in like 2 days.
I know.
So, I had a lot of, I experienced a lot of it in a short amount of time, so I'm able to remember it all a little bit better. But I don't know, I like the music just all the way through.
Funny story. It's kind of funny. You were playing last night, and I was up with you till 1 a.m.
Yeah, I know.
And I brought you into bed with me on my phone.
Oh,
and
I'm like, wait, what?
And I have it above my head, and I'm watching it. And you finally beat the boss, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness, because I'm ready for bed. And you were going through like what everyone was doing after the battle, and I rested my phone on my forehead. And the next thing I know, I woke up and there's the end like written on the screen. I'm like, oh. And all right, thanks for joining us. I'm like, bye. I turned off the phone and went to bed. You were up. You were playing that for a long time.
Yeah, the past couple days. Well, I mean, I think
I joined you at like 10:30 or something. I know you said 11:11 at one point, but I think I joined you about 10:30.
Yeah, I think so. And it was late, and you jumped on. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Kaylie's on. Yeah, I did play it through pretty quick the last couple days. This month has been kind of busy as it is with just a few things that we've got going on. We had a family reunion a couple weeks ago.
What's funny is I've been on top of it these last 2
Yeah, I know,
games.
It's weird.
It was like
it's rare.
We switched positions, because usually I'm the one who's cramming in 5 hours into the last day.
Yeah, so I found myself really trying to pack this one in at the last minute, but it worked out. It's really, really awesome to play this game with people in the Twitch Twitch stream. Not just you. It's always fun to see you on because we have a little bit more to chit chat with.
Other people
but
engaged.
It's so awesome to interact with people who have such a passion for these games that I also have a passion for, and to be able to sit and chit chat and almost make friends with some of these people.
I really think the camera thing is very charming for this type of thing.
I think I'm gonna stick with the camera thing.
Joshua, my baby.
Yeah.
Every time I would, like, if I'm rocking him to sleep, we'd be watching you, and there he would be leaning into the phone trying to kiss his Uncle Danny.
Aww. What a cutie.
It was really funny.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I think that I'm getting more interaction on Twitch because I'm doing the camera thing, so I'm probably going to stick with that in future streams, if I can fit it on my little screen.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, let's jump into overall thoughts. Overall game experience, I gave it a 9 out of 10.
I gave it an 8.
I feel like I probably should have given it an 8, but I really did have a good time playing this game all the way through. I was fully engaged all the way.
I think I would have put it at a 9 or 10 if I loved this game.
Yeah.
It's not that I didn't. I mean, I really enjoyed this game. I loved it way more than the other 3. And there was something about it that was charming. There's something about it that you can't quite explain why you like it. You know what I mean?
I really liked the maturity level of it.
Yeah.
It really felt like a game geared for adults.
Yeah.
And for it being a Super Nintendo game, it's kind of weird to see that, because you're so used to Super Nintendo games being made for kids. Well, but this really, I don't feel like this was.
And in contrast, we were playing 3 before this with the chibi.
Yeah, that's true.
And that...
It was refreshing to see this, like...
it was extremely refreshing to see it like that.
And now, that said, this by all means can be played by children as well. I mean, it's not...
Nothing crazy.
It's just...
They swear, but that's about it, I think.
It delves into, like, deeper issues, than just, like, the typical saving the world sort of deal. But... I mean, it still is kid-friendly. It's not like kids can't play it, they can't enjoy it. It's just, it's geared a little bit more towards the older kids, the adults.
Like I said earlier, me as a kid would not have appreciated this game. I did play this game, by the way, though. When I was in, like, high school. I did play this game, and I was invested, and I did kind of like it. So I know that as a high schooler, I would have enjoyed it. I'm not sure younger than that, but...
The first time I played this through... quite a few years ago now, I think I cheated a lot. I think I gave myself like infinite items or something, so I like plowed through the game and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the storyline. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the battle system. It was just I want to play it to say I've played it.
Yeah.
And now coming back and really experiencing it as a whole, I really, really enjoyed this game a lot more than I had, in the past.
I do have to say, what we're doing now when we're playing, we really have to take those things. I don't think I really took some of these. I think if I had taken them into consideration, I don't, like I said, I don't think I did it this time.
It is different playing these games from a criticizing point of view. It makes you appreciate the really good games a little bit better, you know. And it's nice, you know. I really didn't like the first 3 Final Fantasies. We've played a lot of, you know, the Thrift Shop games can be kind of garbagey, so it's really, really awesome to come across a really good game.
Right.
That said, what did you give it for overall? 8?
Yes.
So that brings my total to a 43 out of 50.
And I'm 38 out of 50. Which...
So that's a 81 out of 100. That's a B.
Yeah, I think that's
a low
acceptable.
B, but I mean, yeah, totally. It's a good game. It's one of our higher Final Fantasy games that we've...
What was your time? Do you remember?
It was 25-22.
Really?
Yeah.
And you weren't even higher level. I was at 24-21. And my levels, let's see. My highest level guy, I have 259s, 258s, and Rydia was 56. But yeah.
I think I spent a little more time, like, menu hopping.
You were too busy sorting your items the first half of the game.
I think that factors in. I really truly believe that my battle system is slower than yours was. So
and I had the auto. Because, like, casting Bahamut all those times.
Yeah. And see, all that adds up. You know, even if it's a minute here, you know, a couple seconds here, a couple seconds there, you know, it adds up. So for me, you know... Yeah, I was under-leveled maybe a little bit. The final boss wasn't that hard. It was really sad. The final boss, like, death scene was super satisfying. Yeah, it was almost creepy the way
fade down.
Well, he like slowly went down, and like the screen was like glitching out and like shaking, and it was just
that was pretty. It's like you've just.
It was like just really cool. It wasn't
a cool death.
It wasn't the same as the past Final Fantasies, and even some of the future ones that I've seen. It's just this really weird, satisfying like struggle that Zemos is having, where he's like dying and he's like struggling, and I don't know, it was really
it was
deep.
Satisfying.
It was really like,
I agree.
Even though the boss fight wasn't all that hard, I think if the boss fight was harder and then you have that death scene, I think it would have been even more impactful, but still the death scene was pretty awesome.
No, I full-heartedly agree. Yeah.
So
Great
Are we
game.
done? Anything else we were talking about?
That was a really long review.
Yeah, it really was.
You know, this had a lot of story to it.
It did,
though.
Yeah, it did. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of, topics to go over in this game. Yeah. It makes Final Fantasy V look awfully appealing.
Yeah.
We got a lot of really good content ahead of us.
I hear this one's pretty underrated, so
it is, yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
I've said it before, I've played all of the Final Fantasy games through at least once.
You said that, and it seemed like you remembered nothing of this game.
I haven't remembered anything of the last few games. What I do remember of Final Fantasy V is that it's significantly under-promoted. We didn't get it in North America until the PlayStation version came out with Final Fantasy VI. So it kind of got swept under the rug with Final Fantasy VI. Then we didn't see it again until the Game Boy Advance version, and again it was on the Game Boy Advance, so it was kind of swept under the rug. So what I remember of it is that it's a really good storyline.
I believe I played parts of this game too, and I remember enjoying it.
I don't really remember hardly any of the characters. I don't remember what the storyline is about, but what I remember is that at the end of the game, I'm like, wow, that was a really good story.
Great.
So I'm really excited to dig into it. I really had a lot of fun. I think I had more fun with Final Fantasy IV than I expected to.
Yeah, I did too.
I remember what I remember from my first playthrough of Final Fantasy IV was that it was really long and there was a lot of characters, and I didn't like it because of that.
Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy V, I played both of them only so far, and when I did play, I really enjoyed, but for whatever reason, I never finished. So I am looking, because I knew I liked 4 for sure. Enjoyed this.
When I was really young, going into my early teens, I wasn't very good at reading.
Yeah.
So I didn't really like these early Final Fantasies because reading
mostly reading.
It was mostly reading.
Well,
It was
especially this
challenging.
one.
It was challenging reading too. And if you didn't read, you had no idea where to
what you're
go.
doing, yeah.
So because of that, I didn't play them when I was growing up. But now coming back and playing them as an adult, I really, really, really like these games.
And as cliche as this is, because we remember growing up and video games were not really it was frowned upon growing up, but I really feel like some of these games contributed to help me read or like learn challenging words and stuff. Because I looked some of these words up when I was a kid. It's like I wanted to know what they were talking about, what they were saying, what that word meant.
I always told teachers who were like, "You can't play video games all day." I always told them that it's more like reading. I mean,
well, for these types of games, absolutely.
It's more like an interactive novel,
right? Yes, absolutely.
More than anything. So yeah, no, great game. I would definitely recommend it. Odds are, if you've made it this far into this review, you probably have already played Final Fantasy IV and you agree. So, I mean, there's that.
If not, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear some feedback on what you guys think. Check out our gameplay on our YouTube channel. We do what we can to show, our experience, and I'd love to see what you guys, what your experience is with these games as well. So, I encourage you guys to play along with us in our future games, but then, just interact with us. It'd be awesome. So, you want to talk about our Thrift Shop game?
Family Feud.
Yeah. Family Feud for the Wii. I picked this up at a thrift shop for $2.99.
It's so shiny.
It is. It's like
so
glittery.
Shiny. It's so pretty. I would hold this on my
You put this
display.
on your shelf?
I put this on my shelf for the world to see.
What did we say?
I think 2010.
2010,
or 11.
2011. Well,
it goes to 2011.
Yeah. It's supposed to be decades from 1976 to 2011.
What was wrong with 75?
I'm not sure. But it specifically didn't include 75.
This game was surprisingly fun.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It kind of... It really took what Family Feud is, and it made it playable. I didn't really like the choices. I didn't really like... it's only a 2-player game, so you can't really... You're not supposed to play it with... You probably are supposed to play with multiple people, but you only need 2 controllers.
Yeah.
So, if you had, 2 teams of 4 or 2 teams of 2, you could probably do that with 2 controllers.
When we were popping this in, I was wondering how we were going to enter our answers. Either we would have to be exact in our spelling and putting in the right answer, or they would have choices in which you could just...
But they kind of did that elegantly, where you had to spell, but it kind of gave you...
That's where it surprised me, because the only other option was to give us, a set of words that we could just easily...
Multiple choices?
Yeah, that we could easily cancel out.
Yeah.
So I felt like this was really well done. It
was a smart way to go about it.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, you were given the survey, and you had to make a choice, or you had to make an answer, and they gave you a keyboard on the screen where you could type out the first few letters of your answer, and they would start auto predicting what you're trying to type out, and then you could choose the answer that you're aiming for.
It was a little flawed because it already kind of anticipated the answer you're looking for, which corresponded with your answer, but
like the one the question was, name items that go on your ears.
Yeah, and you put ear.
And you put ear, and it gives you all these choices, and you're like, well, it's this one and this one and this one.
Although,
so, it gave you an idea.
The 2 contradicting things was when I put in what kids like to do or something like that.
What kids like to do for entertainment or something like that.
And we put toy store, where do they like to go? I put toy store, and it was like the beach.
Yeah, they gave it to you.
And then
that made no sense.
But then when you had the question,
car.
what would you replace in an automobile, and you put oil, and it wouldn't give you oil change because you just said oil.
All I said was oil, but it was oil change. Yeah.
And it was a little lenient, because when I put lights, it gave me headlights, but it didn't give you oil change for oil.
No idea. No idea. Overall, not a bad game.
No, it was fun.
It's kind of a typical, you throw it in just to have some fun one night, but after that, I don't know if I'd ever throw it in again. Unless maybe if I had a handful of people here and I was kind of entertaining a group, I would throw it in just for
charming.
The fun of it.
I guess if you really like Family Feud, it's fun for a couple rounds.
Game. I actually do really like Family Feud.
Too.
I like sitting and just watching it play on TV. So, this was kind of fun to interact with it a little bit.
Well, and it was fun because I guess for us, I'm not too knowledgeable about the 70s and 80s, but you didn't even need that.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with it. It was just
the layout.
The theme of the stage that you were in was depending on what you chose. So it really didn't matter.
It was funny. You should check out that stream.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
It was funny.
Right now it's just on Facebook, but hopefully by the time this podcast goes live tomorrow, we will have Family Feud up on our YouTube page. So yeah,
our inner Family Feud.
You can you can go to our Facebook page too and follow us on Facebook. We stream quite a bit of stuff on our Facebook. Between our Facebook and our Twitch and our YouTube, we are pretty much everywhere.
Well,
so
Facebook we're probably more heavily focused on because all of us are connected on that Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram. Yeah. We're on Instagram quite a bit too. So yeah, check us out, follow us.
Not to deter you from the other handles.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So, our next games.
Our next games are going to be...
So next month, we're talking, September 1st? Yeah, August 1st is tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
So September 1st, we are going to play Donald Duck Going Quackers. Now, this is just a platformer game, and me and Lori actually played it for our event that we had on Facebook a few months ago, where we were playing a bunch of Thrift Shop games, and this was one of them, and I really liked this game. It's just a platformer, but I think that you would really like it too.
Is it easy peasy fun, or...?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not like overly simple, but I mean, it's
doable.
It's kind of like Crash Bandicoot, where it's, kind of a 3D platformer.
There is mild animated violence.
There is, yeah, there is.
Disclaimer.
It's mild, but it's there.
One player. This looks like fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it'll be a fun game for me and you to just sit down on a weekend and just knock it out.
This one.
Now, in the meantime, we will be playing what game?
Harvest Moon for the Game Boy Magical Melody. No, the GameCube.
GameCube, not for the Game Boy. But yeah.
We could do it for the game.
We could. I have it for the Game Boy.
But no, Magical Melody, it was hard for me to pick because I wanted either this one or Animal Parade. But I really liked Magical Melody. It's probably one of my top 3.
Awesome.
So,
I haven't played many Harvest Moon games. I think the first one and the only one I've ever played has been
Save the Homeland.
Save the Homeland for the PS2.
2.
And I don't even remember where I got that game. It was like I just
had it. It's just always been in your collection.
I had to have gotten it somewhere from someone.
That was my first Harvest Moon. I played the PlayStation 1 after that one, and I loved that one. That one is probably my favorite.
So why aren't we playing that one?
Because I liked Magical Melody, because you get married in Magical Melody. You might get married in the PlayStation 1, but you get to play as a girl, so... Sorry, I'm a girl.
No, it's cool. So yeah, check that out. Play with us. I would love if you guys were to jump on and if you have that game sitting around. I know the GameCube games are kind of hard to come by anymore, but
send us screen caps of what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Who you're marrying.
Who are you marrying? I can send screen caps of who I've married.
That's creepy.
Sorry. So check that out. Next month for Donald Duck, and then for Harvest Moon coming up. So I think I'm gonna try and stream Harvest Moon either between the two of us. We'll figure something out. So be on the lookout for that. That'll probably be on our Twitch channel, where Donald Duck we will stream on our Facebook. So wherever you find us, just follow us, because we got a lot of content coming up and it's gonna be fun, and I like to interact with people. So yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, we will see you guys next month.
Bye!